Hey friend, it's like 5:02 in the morning. We got a 6-mile run today to prep for our half marathon on Friday. So I'll pop you in my head and we'll get to work. So hey, Pretentious Engineer here. I know you didn't ask, but I'm a busy guy between raising 4 kids, being a global MedTech entrepreneur, content creator, and community builder on Skool. So I got to do my pod on the run. So every mile we'll pause and chat a little bit. And for today, I want to talk about how to land a job because I'm in the middle of my job hunt in Chicago. So let's get to work. Hey friend. Okay, so we're a mile in, we're running. It's funny, it feels like we're running quick, but it's slow, so I gotta figure that one out. Maybe it's just dead legs. Maybe I didn't sleep perfect, but whatever. We ain't got time for perfect. It's also like in that odd gap between too cold to just go out in shorts and a t-shirt in Chicago, but too hot to justify my full garb, which is like leggings, shorts, 2 long sleeves, gloves. Like the earmuffs are getting me, but then I take them off, my ears will get cold. Anyway, if you're searching for a job in tech right now, like me, if you're an engineer, global leader, entrepreneur, looking to build something, it is very hard, right? You hear that, like, oh, it's hard out there. When my friends applied to 300 plus jobs to get one as a project manager, another person in our community applied to like 500 jobs, hasn't been able to get one. Like, there's all these walls, and they present a lot of challenges because of AI. And I'm not against AI. I think it's an interesting tool. But what happens is you have applicants leveraging AI to like optimize their resume based on different job postings. And then you have companies leveraging AI to pre-screen and filter applicants who aren't optimized. And ChatGPT's not necessarily a guarantee that what you put on that piece of paper clears through all the initial systems and checks. So the big question is, well, how do you land a job without applying to hundreds of jobs and having to take something in a completely different state, relocating as a family, like being at the whims of where your skill set and employer need take you, as opposed to having control and building the life you want, where you can work where you want, doing what you love, at a pay, at a price that's equitable to your talent. So let's get into it. We'll keep working through it on mile 2. Oh my God. Keep pushing, friends. All right, hi friends, how's it going? So, 2 miles in, our pace is actually faster, which is again troublesome. Let's breathe for a second. So I can talk, because I can sense a desire to just start walking. And honestly, we're pretty well locked in, so that would be a little bit silly. But how do we get a job? Well, I want to talk you through a process of how I almost got a job, which was within a given company. And the next mile, we'll talk about how I took learnings from that, or how I am actively taking learnings from that to get a job in another company, because there's different perks to being internal in your job hunt versus external. And say you're, a senior level engineer. Maybe that's my ideal customer avatar for my community. You maybe did an internship or a co-op with your current employer. You landed your first big job, started working it, or competing with your hiring pool, working a ton, getting a couple promotions. But it's all been under the cover with the guise of like internal personal development within the organization. And each new role title was handed to you. You didn't have to really hunt, other than, I want to work for this company, let me join their new hire pool. Oh, 1 second. Coming up on a friend. Morning. Morning. So, in these situations, like once you start looking within a company, you'll actually learn, like, companies will have internal job postings. Most larger companies like J&J will have internal job postings that only people within can see. And heck, they'll even have a special system, at least mine did, where you can see every job posting. You can see the salary ranges, the title, roles, responsibilities, qualifications, just like you would on an external facing post. But then the perk is you can see like the HR hiring partner, like talent acquisition, and you can see the hiring manager. And that person's important because they're the decision maker. Normally, the HR talent acquisition person filters through most of the resumes, most likely. Maybe does some pre-screens, but then they're like, hey, these 7 people seem solid. And then the hiring manager starts doing a series of interviews. And when I was working in Japan, so I had been in Johnson & Johnson for about a decade, okay? Over those 10 years, I progressed from a design engineer to a robotic controls engineer to a systems engineer and into a global leadership role where I was directing front-end innovation from Japan. And across all that, I never applied for a job. Like the way I worked, the reputation I built, the connections I made led to shoulder tap to shoulder tap to shoulder tap, and always kind of a pull over to a new area of expertise. So when we started looking for jobs, things got a little tricky, and we'll talk about that on mile 3. Alright, friends, we're gonna go a bonus distance. I don't know, I'm feeling Sprite, and I finally got out to some prairie. I can't see anything because it's dark, but it's pretty. So we'll run out to 3.5 miles and then cut it back, and that'll be like 11K roughly, 12K, 7 miles. Good times. But anyway, hunting for a job. Okay, so we had just had baby Akio, our 4th child in Japan. Oh, first child born in Japan. And during parental leave, right before it, I was given notice that my international assignment would be ending prematurely. We had planned on 3 years. Organizational scarcity was pushing it to 2. And for me, the target was, how do I lead globally within J&J from Japan? Like, surely there must be a need for someone with my skills in MedTech in Japan. So I applied to about 20 jobs internally posted at Johnson & Johnson. Naturally, not all of these were posted externally. So already, breathing. You're in a smaller pool of applicants. That helps a lot. But as opposed to just applying with my resume, and my resume was, I think, fairly compelling, though I've made some adjustments on it. There's always things you can learn and do better, right? I decided, you know what, I'm going to reach out to each talent acquisition partner, each hiring manager directly. But more than that, I need to give them something. I need to give them a clear image of who I am and my future capabilities and the kinds of problems I like to solve, where I think I can provide them with value. And one of the challenges, I was kind of in an exploration phase of my career. Like, I had done 10 years of R&D, and I'd gotten my feet wet with marketing, being out in Japan. And I was like, oh, maybe I could direct sustainability initiatives from Asia Pacific, because it required the same skill sets I had. Maybe I could direct business development, which is like mergers and acquisitions, from Japan. Maybe I could be the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Asia Pacific region. Right? So because of this, and because of a desire to give kind of these personalized walkthroughs of my career and life, I decided, rather than just sending a quick, hey, I applied for this job, so nice to meet you, really excited, blah, 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 blah. You know, even with the classic, like, yeah, I'd be happy to connect for 30 minutes, blah, 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 blah. Like, I was like, how do I stand out more? So what I started to do was to pull together a virtual portfolio of my work, and this is kind of an experiment based on a lot of assumptions I've made that portfolios are more valuable than resumes. And this also came because I felt that I was being blocked by a VP. So basically, a certain VP didn't see me as a leader at a certain level, but in order for me to stay in Japan, I had to rise to said level, even though I think I had demonstrated success in that. So part of it was I wanted to apply to jobs independent of this individual and have control over building my reputation, with her being a secondary recommendation. Again, these were perceptions. These were things that I gleaned from conversations with her, that she wasn't going to go up to bat for me with some of these jobs. So if I wanted to provide stability for my family in Japan, I had to go up to bat for myself. So, like, the loss of security blanket that I had the first 10 years of my career really pushed me to figure out, how do I kind of serve up my reputation and skill set on a platter? So I recorded a really interesting virtual portfolio, I mean, I used all my content creation skills. I had like whiteboard animations that showed my ability to build bridges across organizations, success. And then what I did, and this wasn't fully maxed out, was I tried to keep the meat of it generalized. What I meant from that is anyone from any of those groups, diversity, equity, inclusion, business development, some of these other roles, even regulatory and stuff, like they would be able, the meat in the middle would be able to like speak to them, like they could see the skill set. It's a living portfolio. But then in the opening and the closing, I made the video more personalized. So even though it was addressed to one person, and we'll talk about what I'm doing that's a little different in the next one. Hey, look at that small decision. Just tacked on an extra half mile. So when we run it back, it's like we get a free mile. 7-mile run day. Let's go. Didn't think I was going out that far. I'm gonna be tired. But it's the extra push. I was just kind of listening to my body and I was like, I think we could go a little farther. Let's get it. But there's a buggy. That's weird. Nature's weird. But the front end, like it was addressed initially to the sustainability organization. But the way I worded it, I kind of opened the door of like, you know, hey, feel free to pass it on to others who you think are looking for this skill set. So when I made this personalized DM, I'd be like, hey, I just applied for this job in your organization. I'm really enthusiastic about it. I pulled together a virtual portfolio for potential role directing sustainability in APAC. I think it'll provide a lot of context of my transferable skills to DE&I. So it wasn't a perfect bridge, but it kind of like helped them see, oh, he's looking at this group, or this group has these skill sets. And even though it didn't open the door for sustainability, the virtual portfolio really captivated APAC director of business development, particularly my empathetic leadership, the journey I'd been on as a family, the challenges we were navigating. And she jumped through a lot of hoops to vet me for the role. I ended up going through five interviews. It was pretty wild. Didn't get the job, which is a whole different story outside of this podcast, and we could talk about that later. But what this whole exercise taught me was there's a power in virtual portfolio, letting people taste and see, experiencing how you talk, your leadership mindset, what you've delivered on, where you can go, almost to color their expectations of you. You know, like you're kind of giving them a sketch of who you are. You're coloring in a couple of the spots. So when they engage you in the DMs or set up an interview, they're already starting to fit pieces together as opposed to your resume. It stands out. So we'll talk more about how to leverage this with external applications, which is what I'm doing right now. Let me pop you on my head. Why did we go so far? Stupid. Okay. 4 miles in, 51 minutes into the workout. We're a mix of sore, tired, out of breath, but still kind of sprite. Like if we stop right now or start walking and talking, it's just out of a desire for comfort, which sometimes we indulge, but not right now. I tacked on an extra mile, which does kind of mean that I need to keep pace up in order to get back in time to serve my family, to feed my lambs. So let's keep this conversation going. So how are we leveraging this mindset externally? I want to try to follow unconventional wisdom with my job hunt personally. And what I mean by that, when I started my community on Skool, which you're welcome to check out, just search the Big Brain Club on Skool, and Skool's platform is spelled S-K-O-O-L. It's cool, you know, cool with a K, of course. But when I started my community on Skool, it was coming out of a lot of the hardship of that experience I navigated, and really providing folks a roadmap with how to secure their best next opportunity so they could win. Because I felt like so many aspects of the hiring process and career advancement were opaque for an engineer trying to transition into leadership. Even though I demonstrated leadership success, like, you know, the how the sausage gets made conversations. So when I started this community and folks started connecting and reaching out and applying to join, all these stories of people doing 100, 200, 300, 500 resumes, it didn't make any sense to me. Like, I had empathy for it, and I just kind of made a personal goal of like, I don't want to do that. I was like, one of the things, this was a piece of wisdom from the VP that I felt was blocking me, right? You can glean from people and still not feel supported by people. Like, you could do both. She's a great leader. Her organizational constraints put her in a position where she couldn't open doors for me. That's okay. I don't need to use the bathroom. I'm just gonna check if this bathroom door is unlocked for future. You never know. But one of the things she said when she saw kind of like my generalized video was this feedback. Oh man, no hope. Folks are gonna have to poop on the ground. Just kidding, that's gross. Hold it. But you never know when gestational distress will come. Alright, so one of the things she said with the generalized approach was that, like, folks applying for these director level roles, like, they have demonstrated success, a lot of it directly in the role, and they seem very focused and very targeted, you know. So like, it was kind of a little bit of judgment, like, how could you swoop in from a different context with a different skill set and beat out, I'm going to use a little bit of tactical words of like conventional candidates, like those you'd expect to see do said job. And oh no, let's go faster, let's go faster. Ah! But one of the things she suggested from the video and what I was doing with my apps was, she was like, don't apply to everything, like, because folks don't want to navigate your resume and your candidacy if you're really not up to the task and fit for it. And for me, like, I had enough motivation, I'd do any job, but it's a matter of like empathetically view the process from the person on the other side of this table. So when it came to making a virtual portfolio for all of my jobs, I structured it as a follow-up to my third interview with Baxter. Good people, we'll see. Give them a shot. I'm also looking at Abbott, AbbVie, Medline's kind of fourth string quarterback right now. I'll still give them a look. They're my check down, right? I'm at the like just keep swimming point of this run. I don't like this part. But I had 3 interviews with Baxter and was like, okay, they are really interested in my ability to tell stories in a global leadership capacity between these 2 R&D factions in 2 different countries. That was kind of the lingering end point of the dialogue. And I was like, well, I shared, 3 slides, and I know how to do these whiteboard animations. And I was like, what if I took them through a business case study of how I had leveraged storytelling and technical leadership to direct an ecosystem of engineers to progress meaningful innovation from Japan. Sorry, the gas. Oh, the gas is getting me. The burps. So, for the generalized virtual portfolio, like, I wanted it to feel super succinct, tight animations hitting as I was telling parts of the story. I wanted it to be like visually striking. I wanted you to also have kind of that whiteboard zoom out experience where, like, as you see what's being put on paper, it's painting a full picture so you can follow what we're building towards and why I'm different and special, because I'm special, right? We're all special. We're all happy little unicorns, right? So I made it really meaty, and my goal was like this whole thing end to end has to be under 15 minutes. Nobody wants a 45-minute virtual portfolio. I think my first portfolio within J&J was like 38 minutes, which is long for senior leadership. It's still got views, it's still got engagement, but it's possible, and it's hard not to, but it's possible to overspeak, to say too much. Much of it was unstructured. Like, I was just going from one PowerPoint slide to the next. Whereas for my virtual portfolio, I scripted the whole thing, used my teleprompter, which I highly suggest getting one. It's like one of the coolest pieces of tech I've ever leveraged in business and content creation. But then I added like a 1 minute, 15-second hook on the front end of this video. And it's super personalized, addressed to the person specifically that I'm emailing. So for the Baxter one, it was the hiring manager and the talent acquisition partner. But then the end of the video also had a personalized yet somewhat generalized hook. And what I mean by that, it was still personalized to the company, loosely personalized to the role without saying it. But then it was also an invitation. There was a call to action, not to hire me for this job, but hey, these, I didn't say this, but like the undercurrent is these processes aren't perfect. So if there's another opening or another leader who has problems I can fix, right? Like if I could be a better fit elsewhere, like invite you to forward this along to other directors, VPs, global stakeholders who could be looking for someone like me. Like, it opened it up a little bit, so that way if someone received this message and it was forwarded to them, even though the intro is personalized, the outro was generalized enough, and likely that person got a personalized, hey, you should watch this thing, this guy could be really a good fit for what you're trying to build, right? Let people hunt behind the process for you. So that's the overall structure of the portfolio. I will tell you more about implementation, execution of it, passing it along in a minute. But get back on my head. We gotta run out to mile 5. Oh my god, I'm gonna die. The moon's still up. Oh joy. What are we doing here? All right, we're back. So we're at about an hour and 4 minutes into this thing, 5 miles. Woo! Definitely challenging, definitely a little bit phlegmy. Oh, we're coming up on a friend. Shh, be quiet. Morning. Oh my God. It's so weird talking to people on runs. Like in Japan. Here's your Japanese case study. People kind of have like this internal state of suffering they lock in. What I mean by that, not all, but the vast majority of runners, when they're running and they pass another runner, they don't acknowledge their presence, they don't make eye contact, they don't wave, they don't bow. I said the vast majority, okay? It still happens, and there's still people once in a while that smile and wave at me because I was this tall, 6'3", heavy, white gaijin foreigner running. Always fun. Okay, so implementation. Trying to help y'all get a job. Podcast on the run. The reason I structured my portfolio this way, the meat of the video, 13 minutes, dense, focused, interesting. At least I think so. And if it's not to someone, it probably shouldn't work for them. If someone's like, oh my God, this animation sucks. Why is this dude wasting my time? You don't want to work for that person. Shove it, right? But for someone who's like eating it up, I structured that meat to be very dense but terse. I try not to overpack it with words. I mean, I still use a lot of jargon, but then the personalization is huge because it's only a minute and 15 seconds on the front end, really about 45 seconds on the back end. Like, thank them for their time, exude confidence that you're sure we'll chat again, right? Point them towards a moving forward outcome versus a pulling away outcome. And I did it that way. So like, I did this one for Baxter. I only used the word Baxter in the first minute and 15 seconds and the last 45 seconds. But I wear the same outfit through all of it, right? So it's continuous. So then there's a couple other people that internally referred me and Baxter to a different job in their digital organization. What I'm going to do today is script it specifically to them. Like, hey Dale, hey June, thanks for the time, the internal referral. Hey, I'm in the queue for a job in this space, but I still want to connect with you and share this virtual portfolio I pulled together. Blah, blah, blah. End to end, to script it, put on the same outfit, and record it, edit it, upload it, send an email. If I'm really focused, it's like an hour, okay? But when you put that work into the front end, you create a situation where June, JP, Dale, any of these people you don't know, they know people. They've been working there for a while. Some of them know my character, and when they see this portfolio, they'll be like, that's where you ended up? Shoot, we gotta get you a job. Like, that's the kind of urgency and demand you want to create for yourself, and then let folks on the inside take it beyond and make it a very simple, very clean call to action of look forward to chatting with you soon. You know, feel free to forward this along and name the level to forward it along to. if you're a senior engineer, they don't need to be forwarding you on to all the VPs and company group chairmen and global leaders. You'd be like, hey, are there any R&D directors that I should be connecting with to see if I'm a fit for what you're building, right? So I put probably 200 hours into the meat of the middle, optimizing my resume, figuring out what are the key dimensions of me, like the essence of who I am, that I think are most valuable to the next organization, right? Like figuring all that self-discovery out, scripting it, animating it, editing it. But then I set it up so I can personalize it and amplify the message for an hour's worth of time. So for an hour a day, I could go and apply to 20 jobs with the same resume, with minor tweaks on a cover letter. Heck, don't even tweak the cover letter, just apply to crap with your resume and see how you end up at the bottom of a stack, right? Or I could take that hour and start pulling on threads within an organization, hunt through LinkedIn and find the one person who seems to work in the division that I just applied to, and just say, hey, I'm reaching out to connect. I am looking for opportunities at Baxter in this group, but honestly, I'd just like to know a bit about your experiences there, and if it makes sense, right? Like, build a relationship, create mutual exchange of value. Like, these are all just good human things to do. So that hour is maximized because then a person within an institution can take your video and send it to 5 people, 20 people, 100 people, if it keeps passing person to person, right? You can create organizational virality. And let me tell you, if there's a lot of people in an org that think you're interesting and have something they're missing, you have the missing piece. So their pain gives you a heck of a lot more power in negotiation, which is the end game, right? If we get too focused on shotgun spray approach to get a job, that's what you'll get. You'll get a job, you'll be a commodity in their organization, and you'll get paid like a commodity. And this is one of the perks of leveraging recruiters, because recruiters are incentivized they get a commission if they position you in an org. So they're incentivized to get you the best pay they can. They're helpful sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes. But in my case, I don't have any contacts with MedTech recruiters in Chicago, at least not yet. I gotta find a way to influence the organization directly. So let me pop you in my head. Yeah, and then we'll talk about something. I don't know what yet. Let me see what I can come up with. All right, friend, we're starting to get just the slightest atmospheric glow of the sun deciding to wake up and do its job. Lazy guy. That's the whole reason we wake up early, is to beat the sun. Feel like we got this universe on lock. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'm exhausted. I don't want to run anymore. We're gonna walk. Woo! We could totally run right now. But this is kind of the nice reflective part of my loop, and heck, let's reflect and chat together for a while. But I can't walk too long, so I'll give myself till the railroad tracks, which are kind of up that way. Walk and talk. I'll try to lock in. Then I find a little stretch friends, when you're running long distance, it's okay to walk. It still covers distance. It's still cardio. You know what's kind of neat about walking and varying it? You would, in your simplicity, your simple minds, think that walking and jogging use the same muscle groups. Some kinesiology major is going to come in here in the comments and rip me apart. But my understanding is that you put different levels of strain on some of these different muscles depending on if you're running or walking and your gait. So for instance, when I run, I use a chi running style, which basically means I have my feet land under my center of mass, or ideally slightly behind it. I focus more on kicking back versus landing forward with my feet in front of my center of mass. So it's lower impact for me. It's kind of like a controlled fall forward. It's weird to explain. I've been building that form over time, but it means I run more with my core and my back, which is still kind of part of your core. It all wraps around you. But when I walk, my feet do land in front of my center of mass. I feel a nice pull on my hamstring to kind of pull my leg forward, drive my knee past my toe as I rotate from foot to foot. So even right now, cardio's still pumping, still walking fast, still working things, but hitting a different muscle group a little bit. So it's giving some recovery. And then the hard part, I used to think if you stopped, you can't restart. And maybe if you're doing a sprint workout, that's true. But one of my first half marathons, I did like a trial half marathon with a runner club. And I did it at a mellow pace, which for me was like very difficult. But they stopped at like every 7-Eleven in Japan. Took drink breaks, got back, jogged. I was like, oh, so you could break up like 13.1 miles, a mile at a time with little gaps. It's like, that's so cool. So, isn't that lovely? Anyway, back to your job hunt, because you need a job. Most folks, vast majority of folks need jobs. Most folks aren't set up to be entrepreneurs, and I don't believe that everybody should just go and start a business without knowing anything. You need to work to learn certain things. School's a whole nother conversation though. But anyway, I think this approach is a breakthrough. Like, my goal is to get a job, and I've talked about this in my community, like a 30% pay increase or better, with a 20 to 30% signing bonus. Standards normally 10%, at least for engineers. Directors gets up into the 30 space. Living in Chicago, which is where I want to be right now. Used to be Japan. Now I actually like Chicago. Now that we've been here for 30 days, at least for the near term. You know, and I want to love what I do. I want to lead a team through really challenging problems. I want to tell stories, and I want to, you know, see where I could take an organization and advance global healing. Like, I want all those things. And I want to build community on Skool, and I want to make content, and I want to be a present dad. You can do it all as long as you do the right things and don't do everything, you know? So I think my goal is to like do less than 10 applications, which sounds really risky, right? Like, I haven't had medical insurance in 5 months, but from what I can understand about the hiring process, because it's coming up on Thanksgiving, I don't know when you'll hear this, like, I've been told decisions are being made in January. Sure. In the back of my mind, I'm like, bullshit. Like, that's corporate noise. Decisions are being made right now about what the org looks like in 2025. So for me, I want to lovingly inject and influence the process in the in-between. So I fired off this portfolio to the right, like hottest jobs I've applied to. Like, literally, like if I got this job I applied to, it'll be hard. I'll be really happy about it. Like, it's a good fit. It's a very, very good fit. And I'd be coming in slightly as an outsider, but like an insider. Like, it's got like the right elements of like coming in with a decade of experience from J&J, from R&D, coming and directing operations and communication. Like, it's a weird shift, but it fits. Anyway, we'll see if I get it. But the hope is that I did such a good job on the app in connecting around the process, because I was able to get an internal referral, and I have a really good connection with like the head of APAC talent acquisition. I won't disclose how I have that connection, but it's pretty cool. Life is cool. So I'm like, that job would be neat. But Baxter's also very neat. Baxter's balance sheet is a little bit more concerning to me. There seems to be a little bit more organizational volatility from a finance perspective. So other jobs in AbbVie, which it's stronger on the pharma side. So moving MedTech to pharma would be cool. I have the transferable skills, right? I'm hopeful. I think I'm hopeful about the whole process and what we're doing. And then I'm recording everything I'm doing so that I can package it into an offer for Skool. I'm still back and forth about whether I give it away for free, or if I paywall it, or a little bit of both. So we'll see with that. Like, the problem with Skool, y'all are like, what's Skool? Don't worry about it. I'm just gonna ramble for a minute. Humor me, maybe you'll learn something. I need to ramble so I can figure out my business, because I'm building a business in parallel to joining a company. I'll have to make sure I disclose that after they decide to hire me, because my intent's to do both, right? Some folks work, they bring their best contribution to work, and then they Netflix and chill. I work, bring my best contribution to work, engage my kids, my family, make a couple YouTube videos, fire off a couple DMs or some looms to members of my community, right? We can put our spare time into building something, or paying someone else for their services. I mean, I still pay for Netflix and Disney Plus. I'm not on Paramount yet. You're not going to get me over there. No. Boundaries are important. Now, we are coming up on another walker friend, so just hold steady. Oh, that's my wife. Oh, no, it's Dawn. Morning. So, friends, my encouragement to you. Am I already ending this thing? We're not even at the end. Following my brain is so crazy. So, Skool, the problem with Skool, right? There are different ways to structure communities, payments, the value you bring, how you close people. It's like low ticket, mid ticket, high ticket. It's all very complex. And I'm trying to simplify. And even as I say that, I laugh, because I was like, well, my structure is kind of complicated. The goal is I want to give as much away for free as possible, just out of goodwill, building trust, have people used to learning from me and interacting with me. And then I want to protect my time. That's kind of the biggest thing for me, is like time leverage with family. So rather than doing I have a free tier community. The first 9-module video course is how to say goodbye, which helps you discern if you should be taking a strategic exit from your current employer, because there's lots of predatory incentives that keep people in jobs that underpay them and underserve them and don't develop them. And we can lose years of our life. And I'm trying to get those years back for people. But where I ran into some morality challenges, initially I had a paid community with that. And a lot of people wanted what I was offering, but if you're looking for a job, you don't have the capacity to pay for it. And it was turning into well, I could let you in for free for a while. It got very complicated, and I didn't like it. So I was like, you know what? let me pay $100 a month to have this community, because that's what it costs, like operation costs to have a community in Skool. I was like, I'll pay $100 a month. I'll put that whole curriculum out for free. I'll roll people in, and that'll be my funnel to Skool from all my organic content, like this podcast. And let me help you figure out if you should quit your job. And I'll automate it, right? Like I'll automate all the onboarding and all the content. I'll post and engage with people to some extent. You know, like that's what I'll do. But I was like, well, then what's my next level? I was like, well, I could do a paid community. Originally it was gonna be at like $333, and I was gonna have the how to land a job curriculum and a whole bunch of other engineering, global leadership kind of stuff, and give people one-on-ones. And I was like, well, I was talking with someone, I was like, I was gonna make people wait. It's like, I was gonna do it cohort style. So you have people join a wait list for 6 months, you launch a cohort, and you walk with them, you journey with them for 6 months, change their life, right? Give the testimonials, and during that time you have a wait list for the next cohort. So it creates some supply and demand, helps people plan for it because it's a larger purchase, it's a larger personal investment, gives them time to get approval from their managers of like, hey, I think this guy could really help me grow, right? Spoiler alert, you might quit your job though, so figure out how to navigate that conversation tactfully. But originally it was gonna be $333, and I was chatting with people on Skool, and they're like, dude, that's like $9.99. And I was like, what? And I really started thinking about it though. If I wanted to be able to give each person of that community a one-on-one with me per week, I could only scale to 10 members at $333. And I was like, well, what if I start small and expensive? So give as much away for free, like even move the how to land a job series over to the free community. Like teach people how to quit, teach people how to get a job so they can get money, right? And then they're gonna run into some legitimate challenges on the work-life integration and family and global leadership and entrepreneurship and all those things. And then make them wait to join a really high-ticket experience with me and take those 10 people ludicrously far, like in excess of the $6,000 they would spend over 6 months, like provide them $20K worth of value. I was like, the only way I could scale that is if I kept it small. And I don't know, Horsomi said it was something like, it's easier to sell 10 people on $1,000 a month than it is to sell 100 people on $100 a month, or whatever the inverse is to hit the same math. So that's what we're building towards. I'm not trying to sell you into that program because I don't even know you yet, friend. Come hang out in the free community. That's the podcast for the day. You can sip on that, keep changing the world. I gotta go take care of my kiddos. Later.